What's going on, everyone? Josh here, and this time I have a unique video for you all. I am joined by Felix.
How's it going?
One of our salespeople in the Melrose store, and he had the opportunity to take the Canon C70 out for a couple months to do some testing, and today we're going to break down some of his findings for you all. First and foremost, Felix, tell us a little bit about yourself as a photographer, as a filmmaker. I know that you've been working with Canon for a long time.
Yeah.
Is there any reason for that specifically?
I mean, I started off with Canon. I started off with the 70 Mark II and kind of worked my way up from there and just kind of stayed in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And now on to RF mount.
Exactly. And since Canon keeps expanding their lineup, it gets easier and easier to maintain and stay within one camera system. So that's really, really good.
100%.
So yeah, let's just get right into it and talk a little bit about the Canon C70. Let's start very generally and just talk about what are some of the upsides to shooting with the Canon C70.
The biggest thing for me was probably the 16 plus stops of dynamic range. The fact that I can retain all that highlight detail or bring up the shadows in post is a huge thing for me. On top of that, the 10 stop ND is a game changer. On my usual camera, the R3, if that had built-in NDs, it would make my life a lot easier.
And that's something that is becoming more common. A lot of these cameras, especially even cameras with a smaller sensor like this, they're becoming a lot easier to shoot in a lot of different situations, making filmmaking kind of something that
accessible to
it's accessible.
Everyone.
People
and I mean,
can
even in the lower end photo cameras from Canon. I mean, the R7 can shoot C-Log3. And if you just want to start getting into filmmaking, you know, grab some friends, film some stuff.
Just do it.
Just do
I
it.
started shooting on a Canon 60D, and I was like, that was the holy grail when I started shooting. So, in terms of low light shooting, because I know you did shoot mostly in controlled lighting, did you have any issues with shooting in lower light conditions? I don't know if you necessarily did too much of that, pushed the sensor at all.
So I was 90% of the time at the base ISO of 800. In the evening, I had one shoot where I was pushing at 3200, got in the editing software, did some denoising in it.
Took care of that.
Took care of all those problems.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When it comes to working with these files in post, with editing and with color grading, how do they hold up? Are they easy to work with? Is it something that's going to choke your computer up?
So I had an M1 Ultra, so that kind of helped the situation. But the fact that you can do RAW to 1 card. So this has a slot A card and a slot B card. You can shoot RAW to 1, but on the B card, you can shoot proxies. So you save so much time by going into the encoder and converting all those files, and just saves you so much time.
That is a fantastic integration for this camera because, like you said, it's saving you a lot of time. And if you're shooting in a high resolution, like 4K or higher, you're going to need to proxy those out, even with a computer as beefed up as he has. So it doesn't really matter. Like, that's a great feature that I actually didn't know was part of this camera. Talking about the sensor a little bit, I did mention it was smaller. It's a Super 35 sensor, which is not like tiny by any means. You can still get obviously great dynamic range, great color out of it. Did you see any challenges when shooting with a smaller sensor at all? And does it work for your workflow?
Most of the time I was shooting with the 15 to 35 RF, but then I was shooting with the cine lenses. If you want that better low light performance, you could just throw in the 0.71 speed booster from Canon, puts EF lenses on there, and you have practically a full frame sensor and almost a full stop more of light. No issues for me with the sensor. I mean, a bit in the beginning, shooting with full frame lenses, you know, you have that readjustment of this is not actually a 24, this is not actually an 85. So I had to kind of adjust for that, but after the first day, it was just like, I was already visualizing what it was going to be like.
Once you get it down, it becomes kind of second nature, which is really, really great. So let's talk a little bit about the form factor, because it is, like I said, a little bit unusual, not in a bad way, but in a unique way, because a lot of cinema cameras, they're not built like this. This one is built, well, for one, it has a grip. It's much more in line with their R series of cameras, like the R5. It's a little bit beefier, a little bit bigger.
Almost like a 1DX.
Exactly, yeah, with the grip on it and everything. What are the upsides to shooting on a camera that's this size?
So I think when Canon designed this camera, it was primarily geared towards run and gun filmmakers with the built-in NDs, the fact that you can have a lens on there, a BPA 30 battery, and shoot most of the day, no problem, is fantastic. But if I'm doing something like an indie short or a commercial shoot, I can rig this up to be as big as I want.
Right.
And that's just a fantastic feature.
Right, and it's gonna resolve well. It's got obviously 4K shooting. The lenses are great. I mean, the lens selection is gonna be up to you, but the fact that you were saying that you could integrate this into a full-scale production.
It's an incredibly modular camera.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing for me. I had it on sticks, had it on a gimbal, handheld, fantastic.
Yeah, and again, if you look at a lot of the other cinema camera options that are out there, they're getting smaller. There are options for you, but still with big scale productions, like big movie sets, you are working with a camera that is not meant to be held like you can hold this camera. They definitely don't have grips on them. So that's just great to hear. And like you're saying, the battery life, you don't necessarily need to put an external like V-mount or gold mount on there.
So I had one BPA 30 for the entire trip. I did one 5 to 6 hour shoot.
Yep.
At the end of it, I still had 15-20% battery left. And then I went outside to a nearby waterfall and we still shot for an extra 45-50 minutes.
Right, and you were shooting in?
Raw, 24 frames, 4K.
Yeah.
And then of course the proxy files.
Right.
And it was battery life was no issue.
That's pretty astounding at this point.
Another thing is, you know, when the C70 came out, it had a bit of a wobbly LCD screen. Canon went ahead and fixed that.
Yep.
The screen, for the most part, was the only thing I was using, no external monitor.
Oh yeah.
And it was bright enough for most of the situations. And all the assist features on there are fantastic. Focus peaking, zebras, waveform.
Yeah.
This camera is just so much fun to work with.
Yeah. And it is a true cinema camera. Like there is a distinction between something that's pro cinema and something that is not. And this is definitely a cinema camera that can be used in a lot of different situations, which is great. I mean, it's making video work and filmmaking, like you said at the beginning, more accessible to people.
And I love my R3, but when it comes to video work, this camera made my life a lot easier.
I love to hear that.
Yeah. Another thing was with the editing. One scenario I had was, it was a scene in a studio. That's where it was taking place. And I had the lights from outside.
Yep.
And then I was filming towards the door. And I was able to pull up those shadows and still retain all the detail, do some denoising, and it still looked incredible.
That's crazy.
Yeah. We're just getting started with the RF mount.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a whole lineup of lenses and hopefully down the road, more cinema cameras.
Yep.
This is just scratching the surface of what we can do.
Right.
So I'm stoked to see what Canon comes out with.
Me too. This is a great starting point for their RF cinema line. And like you said, I can't wait to see what happens in the future because this is a great start.
And the fact that they, you know, it's been almost 3.5 years since this camera was released. The fact that they did so many updates, I mean, it didn't come out with raw video. And then a 1.5 years later, they throw on a massive update on there, letting you do raw ST and raw LT.
Yeah.
The fact that they consistently updated this for almost 3 years that shows Canon cares.
Exactly. It's a good sign too.
Yeah.
And the fact that you can push firmware updates and have it be these massive kind of game-changing updates to your camera is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And it shows that they're thinking ahead too, which is really great.
Yeah. Good job, Canon.
Yes. And there you have it. The Canon EOS C70 is a little bit of an unusual but an incredible addition to the Canon cinema lineup. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Once again, my name is Josh.
My name is Felix.
And if you enjoyed it, please be sure to give us a like and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an upload. As always, if you have any other questions about the Canon C70 or anything else camera related, please feel free to give us a call, send us an email, reach out on one of our socials, or simply stop by one of our 8 stores located around New England. That's crazy.
We won't include that.
I don't even remember what I was saying. I'm just not even going to talk about that.
Am I being awkward? So honestly,
the C70 is actually was this size? Hold on. I had it.